Hello and welcome to the space between ideas. I'm Blaine Gates and curious. Let me just check the sound for a second. This is usually the part where the people delete stuff at the beginning of their live videos. And we are not getting, here we go. Okay, are we here? Okay, it looks like we should be okay. Hello and welcome to the space between ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. I have an exciting show planned for you today. It's going to be a little bit haphazard. It's going to sound a little bit crazy. In fact, that may even be a good place to start. Remember months ago when we were talking about the direct outcomes checklist that is called state styles? That is something equivalent to how I create these YouTube videos. The first stage, remember, was called nil, and that is when you start doing something, and in order to start doing something, you have to stop doing other things. Since I live up in the mountains here in the country of Georgia, just right over the hills, you can see Russia and Azerbaijan. So the thing which I was doing before was, I don't know, what was I doing? I was thinking about creating some new YouTube thing, and now I stopped thinking about it, and now I'm actually doing it. So step number 2 after you start doing something is to do it haphazardly. And remember what that meant. So that meant that, like, okay, so maybe you're next to a field and you call out to your team and you say, hey guys, come this way, right? So that's the goal, right? The vision, the thing that you're working towards is calling out to you saying, hey, come this way. And if you're not exactly sure how to get there, or if your team is blindfolded, then they're going to go, they're going to hit their head on a tree, whoop, they're going to fall into a hole, and you're going to do things haphazardly for a while until you get to the point where you can do some A/B testing. I am not at the point of A/B testing yet with this YouTube channel. Right now, we are in the haphazard stage. And so things may change, things may improve, things may get worse. Who knows? But as long as we continue to make these videos, hopefully at some point, we'll figure out the formula to making fantastic, entertaining, educating, interesting, and impactful videos here at Space Between Ideas. Now, in the last couple of videos, we've been talking about the state purposes checklist. I think this is where we left off. And we were just looking at this thing where on the left, we have the categories of purposes or motivations. And we've been really focusing on the bottom section here, where we're talking about something called potential. And I think for the most part, I've been talking about potential from the perspective of the human, from the worker. And I think this person is generally can be characterized as an intern, or somebody who has just graduated from university, or somebody who is early in their career and they are trying to build something. Because all of these things are directed at what? Enhancing reputation, attaining certification, recognition, maintaining, enhancing wellness. So these are all things that are really important to people who are just entering the workforce. Because once you have 5 kids and a mortgage, then maintaining or enhancing wellness might not be as important as, getting paid. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make, you don't necessarily have to be new in the workforce to want to work with potential. And the other point I want to make is that if we look at the perspective of the company, you can also think of it in terms of the direction, the vision, the potential of a particular company. You might be saying that this company is trying to enhance their reputation. Oh, really? Well, do you have some proof of that? Yeah, well, if we jump into this interview between Peter Schiff and Jack Mallyer, it's a debate about Bitcoin versus gold. Maybe I'll just see if I can play it. So this is on the David Lynn channel. I remember David Lynn when he used to be Kipco, something co, Kipco, I think. It's a gold company in Canada, and he was doing all of the interviews, and then now it looks like he's branched out on his own. So he's talking about Bitcoin. This is actually Peter Schiff talking right now, and let's just see if we don't need to see his face, but let's listen to him as he reads the next couple sentences.
Because Bitcoin derives its value from the same way that fiat currency does. It's a belief system. People have to have confidence that people will want it in the future. And if that confidence goes away, then the price crashes. That is a big risk. I would rather take the risk that the counterparty goes bad. Because, people trust counterparties. That's part of capitalism. It's the beauty of capitalism. You have reputations. You compete for reputations. If people couldn't use counterparties, there'd be no insurance industry. All insurance is based on a counterparty risk.
All right. So right here, he uses the word reputation. So he says that the beauty of capitalism is... Okay, here it is. So he's talking about counterparties. So it's like, I had a fun experience with Bitcoin many, many years ago because I bought some Bitcoin and then what happened to my Bitcoin? I don't know, it just didn't work, or the thing that was supposed to happen didn't happen, or I didn't understand it well enough. And so there was nobody there to help me. And then you start jumping online, you watch some videos, and then okay, what, you think you can do it now? And then suddenly you make another mistake. And so that's why we use banks, because banks have insurance and banks understand the rules and banks have a lot of experience. And so we are actually using the reputation of a bank. That's the whole purpose of using a bank. So he says the beauty of capitalism is that you have reputations, you compete for reputations. And that's why we use one bank over another bank, is because we have looked at their history. That's why some people used to use Switzerland, because they have a long, long, long history of preserving people's gold through wars and through all kinds of different conflict. All right, so we're talking about reputation as a matter of a business. So obviously a business is also trying to develop its potential. Now, I don't know exactly, there's probably, okay, what about attained certification? So you have that ISO 2001, ISO 2000, 5000, all these different ISO certifications. It's also a business who is enhancing their potential by getting certification. Also, obviously, maintaining wellness. It's just so crazy when I look at Canada and America these days, and you look at the debt and you just wonder, what does it mean to raise the debt ceiling? Because it just seems like so I understand the whole system is based on, the first dollar was borrowed into existence. And I've watched those Maloney, the Secret of Money videos, which explains the US dollar financial system and the creation of fiat currency. So I have a basic understanding of that whole concept. And I know that you have to continue to borrow more and more dollars into existence until the whole system topples over. So yeah, in general, I would say that I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point, just like they did in the past, they changed the monetary system. And according to history, I guess that fiat currencies have a 30 to 40 year lifespan. So, okay, what does that mean for us? That means that at some point you have to be able to move your money from fiat dollars into some kind of commodity or some kind of liquid asset, or maybe not so liquid asset. And then you wait for the reset, and then you put your money back into whatever new currency arises from. Remember when they had The Economist in 2018, and there's a phoenix rising out of the ashes? So anyways, I'm not trying to give financial advice. I'm just saying that businesses and countries, they have to maintain their balance sheet. And it seems like there are some companies who are having some problems with that. And now as the US and Canada and the European Union and Germany and all these big countries are facing financial problems, what does it mean for these countries to maintain financial wellness? And what does it mean for their people to maintain some kind of emotional wellness and social wellness? It seems like there's a lot of contention right now, and it sounds kind of scary. Anyways, that's about enhanced reputation. So I don't really want to go too far. I don't want to jump into the next one quite yet, but I did want to just review one more time, because what was the whole reason? We're trying to combine the purposes and motivations with the big five personality traits to see why we would need certain types of traits and how they might be beneficial and in what ways they might be beneficial. So I was just looking at like enhancing reputation. So if you want to enhance your reputation, probably like, do you have to be high in openness? Because if you're not high in openness, let's say you're high in openness, but you are openness. All right, so conscientiousness. When it comes to conscientiousness, like, look, so when it comes to money, it's like drive to earn money. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean drive to earn money, right? So conscientiousness, when we're talking about maintaining or enhancing financial wellness, we're talking about someone's ability to pay attention to their money. How much money am I spending? How much money am I earning? And how much time am I spending on activities which can increase my wealth? And what are the steps in order to increase my wealth? And am I able to walk through those steps one by one? Okay, exercise. Can I complete the workout regularly? Attaining certification of the recognition. So it means like I took the steps, I completed the program, I can be recognized. And then enhancing reputation. For example, my word is my bond. The job got done. People are satisfied. So you can see that in work, conscientiousness is the most important trait. Like openness, okay, so you're a really smart guy, you're able to like be really creative. And if you're not like really high in openness, you could also be an auditor, you could be an accountant, so those are really good jobs, a programmer, people who are doing routine tasks, that's fine. So like in order to enhance your reputation, you don't necessarily have to be high in openness because you could be a really great auditor. You could be the auditor that everybody trusts. Remember that one movie, not by, what's Matt Damon's friend's name? Anyways, he had this movie where he was an auditor and it was kind of weird. He was like finding things. Anyways, now let's go into extroversion. So reputation, when it comes to extroversion, it means what? So he's a nice guy. Agreeableness, he's kind. Neuroticism, he's stable. You see, so the thing about reputation is that it touches like at least four aspects, at least four traits. People will like have an opinion about you as a person. And anyways, let's keep it going. So in the next video, we're probably going to jump back and then we're going to try to pull this thing apart, deploy, gain, and create resources, methods, skills, and knowledge. And what does that have to do with potential? So what I wanted to talk to you today is, even though we're like halfway through or maybe more. So in this week, I had 2 trial sessions. And what does it mean for a trial session? It means that somebody is meeting me for the first time. I have sent them a document. So I always send people this document. You can't see the name of the document, but the name of the document is called Game Pieces. Every time I talk to a new person, I always send them this document. And this is actually my online course. So they can watch the first 2 videos of the online course, the introduction, the thing. Remember, we were talking about think better, do better. Then they can watch something about the table of contents. So what I want is that I need them to start talking about these questions. Number 1, what aspect of your job could benefit from thinking tools and thinking techniques? How have you selected methods and tools to help you at work? What are some future opportunities that you might like to take advantage of? How do you keep up to date with managerial and project management training? So I asked those questions. Usually people are just like, what's a thinking tool? It's quite a big leap, actually, to get to the first session. And then it gets a little bit even crazier because when we go into the corporate menu, I think we've talked about this a couple times in the past. I look at a business in terms of like 3 categories. We have people that are making decisions. Those are executives and managers. Then we have thinking frameworks and data analysis. Those are coaches and analysts. Then we have people who follow orders and rules. Those are librarians, clerks, and technicians. So remember, when we talk about conscientiousness, in all of these cases, we need conscientiousness. It's likely the people who are more open are going to be further to the left side. So if you want to increase your ability to succeed at work, there's always going to be people like, look at this. We got lawyers, accountants, purchasing department, registration, subsidies. We got people who manage data in databases. This is all low in openness. This is all the auditors, people who are just following the orders, following the rules. What is happening? What do we have to work with? Let's get the job done. And then as you start to move left, then we are talking about more and more abstract thinking, because we're going to be looking at some thinking frameworks, and also we're going to need some kind of analyst to come in and analyze the data. And this is the information which is going to inform the manager and the executives. So we talk about vision, and the whole concept of vision means that you are high in openness because you are seeing something which is not in reality right now. So the first gentleman that I met was from China, and he was from Beijing. Actually, he was a student. And I never really know what to do with students because my target audience is actually mid-level managers and executives. Obviously, when you take a look at this, then if you are at the bottom side, like I've talked to a lot of lawyers and accountants, and they don't make it past like 2 or 3 sessions, and then they're just like, whoa, this is like, give me rules, give me structure, give me something specific. Like, because I'm talking about concepts and frame. Like, look, I'm the coach, right? So I'm talking about thinking frameworks. And it's easier for me when I talk to managers and executives because they already understand the whole concept. Somebody else is actually doing the work. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to put some like method to their madness. So they need to talk to a coach. They need to talk to an analyst in order for them to understand the direction of the company, to clarify their vision, and then to pick the right people so that they can manage those processes with infrastructure. All right, so I talked to this kid, and he's just like, yeah, I go to some economics university in Beijing. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I structure this for this kid? Like, so I sent him that document, and so we started with what is a thinking tool and a thinking technique. So, and then after we talked about that, he had no idea what is a thinking tool, and he's like, ChatGPT. I'm like, oh boy. So we had to kind of jump right into the corporate menu quickly because he couldn't really understand thinking tools and techniques. And like, this is a thinking tool, right? When we look at a business in terms of 3 categories, that's a thinking tool. In order to look at an organization and understand it as functions, and then to look at different positions in that company, understand it as functions. I couldn't explain to him exactly what is a thinking tool. So we just jumped into the first thinking tool. But yeah, so we talked about vision, and we talked about, okay, what's the vision of Elon Musk? And okay, so now it will likely take 20 years to get to Mars. What's the vision? The vision is to reach Mars in 10 years. So his vision is to decrease the amount of time it will take to reach Mars by 10 years, right? What about Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs envisioned transforming everyday life by creating innovation, user-friendly technology that seamlessly integrates into personal expression and creativity. Vision. So who's this? Increase resources such as gold, kill people, and steal their resources. Okay. Yeah, one of the questions in my course is where is it? Just okay. One of the questions, it's like, see, the thing is, after you understand what an executive is and what a manager is, then it's like down here. Can you use the above roles to describe a pirate ship? So what is a pirate trying to do? A pirate is trying to increase resources such as gold, kill people and steal their resources, use a treasure map, achieve fame. You see? So like, this reputation is definitely a key motivator of a pirate. And if you think about businesses in general, like, those are the key motivators. Number one, it's to defeat the other companies and steal their resources. For example, sales. And what they do is they create a treasure map in order to get to the treasure. And then they also have to achieve fame, you see? And then who's the manager? There's the, there's the crew, there's the first mate. Anyways, the interesting thing was, like, I tried to draw like a picture. I wanted to go back from, like, okay, so we're not going to talk about groups of economies. We're not going to talk about politics because it's super, 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 super 复杂. I was talking to a Chinese guy. 复杂 means complicated in Chinese. Yeah, I've been having problems because I speak 3 languages and I talk to people in 3 languages. So it's like, I'm getting really mixed up these days. All right, and then you have group of markets. Those are economies. Groups of organizations, that's a market. And then we have groups of departments, that's an organization. We have groups of projects, so that is a department. And then we have groups of actions and plans, that is a project. Then there's the things we do. So actually, I'm doing that backwards. So what I talk about is how to create actions and plans. You see? So this is like one of Tom Buchhold's books. He's talking about like science, and he's talking about from the very small to the very large. When you talk about the universe, that's the whole thing. It's like you want to be able to talk about the elementary particles, but then you also want to be able to talk about gravity and the expansion of the universe. So you're going from the very, very, very small to the very, very, very large. And that's what we started with, is the things we do, and action. An action is based on a plan, and a plan is based on a goal. And that's what we talk about all the time. Is what is our objective? What is the plan in order to achieve that objective? And then what are the actions? And we put that all together, and next thing you know, you're managing a project. That's why I talk to managers, because they're managing the projects. So you have a group of projects, and now you have a department manager. You can see it's green, because this is the whole focus of everything I talk about, is the organization. Well, actually not necessarily the organization, but the department. And then you have groups of organizations, and then we have markets. And then you have groups of markets, and that's the economy. And so for him, I just don't understand. Like, when you're a kid and you're in university, you're studying all of these complex things like economy and markets, but yet at the same time, you have no idea what is a department and what is an organization. So yeah, these are very different things. But like, if you don't understand the very big, then, if you don't understand the very small, then how could you come to understand the very big? In the second guy I talked to was a guy from Tanzania, or Tanzania, depending on how you pronounce that. And last year, well, I guess it's 2 years ago, I went to Kenya and Uganda and Rwanda. But because of the change of the weather, I wanted to get to South Africa before it became too cold. So I skipped out on Tanzania. I may have to go there some other time. So the thing is that he wants to do business in Canada. And like, when I very first started talking to him, I wanted to see if I could use the 100 task startup. So we jumped straight into the business models. We started talking about business models, and he told me a couple of things about his businesses in Tanzania, and then he was asking what kind of opportunities are available in Canada. So that's where I just wanted to start talking about business models. And also because of the 100 tasks. I thought that the 100 tasks would be a good thing because he wants to set up a business in Canada. But I found out that this is garbage. If you go into the 100 tasks, then you gather, what does it say? Let's just go into my condensed version. All right, so set up tasks. Now, you want to set up your tasks. So basically it means you got to define your goals. You set up an organizational chart. You set up your financial chart. You create a long list of business models. And then what? And then you go through all these, it was totally useless because these thinking tools, they're helpful after you have a business idea. But the 100 tasks, it doesn't make sense because mission plan, gather all the steps, define goals, determine the budget. What is this for? What is the business specifically? What is going on? What is the business? And then then it goes through all these thinking methodologies. Where is it that you actually start thinking about the actual business? And it's almost halfway through the chart when they first start talking about specify MVP. What do you mean? Specify MVP? Like, what were you thinking about when you were working on these different methodologies? Like when you were doing the design thinking, you were talking to customers about what? Like, don't you need an MVP? Like right here, like where's the opportunity? I guess you can come up with some kind of opportunity, but you have to have like something. I remember I was like 18 years old and my buddy came over to my house and my parents' house, and he was like, "Hey, let's start a business." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you know how to do?" Like, right? Like you have to come up with an idea, and then like you can come up with another idea. You can pivot from that idea to a different idea, or you can expand that idea, but you have to have some idea. Where in like the 100 tasks, you don't even develop an MVP until you're launching. Like, oof, I couldn't understand what he's talking about. So I'm talking to this guy from Tanzania, and like finally what happened was we eventually got back to this concept of like potential. So I just asked him like straight out, like what is it that what do you want to do? Like what are your ideas? Like what are you hoping to achieve? Like what is your vision? What is your desire? What is possible? We need to know if your hypothesis is viable. We need to know if there's case studies. Have people moved from Tanzania to Canada in the past? Are we going to be using a proven strategy, or are we testing a new strategy? What's going on? Like, what is happening here? Eventually, what actually happened was we went through this. We did a lot of brainstorming. In fact, we started out by like thinking about stuff like this. So he wants to start a new business in Canada. I wanted to know, can you set up a business in Canada if you're not Canadian? How will you get your product? Where will you get your product from? What products are high in demand? And he talked about perhaps something IT related, selling equipment and devices. Then, okay, or you could buy a business in Canada, you could find partners, you could look for some government grants. So our conversation kind of started like that. But eventually we pivoted back to, because he came up with some ideas, we pivoted back to using, you see, what are these three things? Remember? The whole concept of potential is interactions, motivation, and resources. That is the definition. Right? Here it is. So here's potential. So what I did was I put interactions, I put gather resources, motivate participants, and develop teamwork at the top. And then we eventually came up with 4 ideas. So one was import products from China and Dubai to Canada. Right now he's importing products from China and Dubai to Tanzania. Or look at Tanzania investment to Canada, look at Canadian investment to Tanzania, or sending Tanzania students to Canada. He's already sending Tanzanian students to China. So these were kind of like some of his opportunities. And then so for his homework, I told him, all right, so fill in those boxes. Let's talk about how do I find the right people to work with? Why would they be interested in working with me? And what resources are needed to go in this direction? All right, so that's what a trial session looks like with me when you're a student. So I tried to create give him a picture of what am I actually talking about in comparison to what he is learning right now. And then I have that course. So I just guide them through my online course. Then in the second instant, we have a real businessman. He's already doing several businesses. And so what does it look like for him? We talked about the concept of potential directly, which, basically it's just, it's still my course. It's just look, so after we talked about the corporate menu, then we go into potential. And the last thing I wanted to talk about just for the next 2 minutes is that it's this concept here, right? So we talked about this last time, that every business is a plan and then run the plan, and then a plan and then run the plan. Then we add the word potential in there. So it means that between the plan, after running the plan and before you start the new plan, then you have to come up with your new vision. Anyways, when we simplify it into the 4-part endeavor cycle, it looks like this. So you enter the program. What do you want to do? That's the concept of potential. And then you create a map of the terrain. And that's what I did with the gentleman from Tanzania, is we created a map of the terrain. So these are the 4 potential businesses that he might like to run. And now that we have those ideas, now we can jump into these thinking models. So after he fills all those boxes in, then we can start going through these thinking models. So I just feel like the 100 tasks is kind of missing a few steps. It's not quite there yet, or at least I'm not quite understanding it. And then after you get the map of the terrain, then you decide on a route, which is your plan. Remember, the huddle means plan, and then you run the play. So this is what I call the 4-part endeavor cycle. Eventually it's going to turn into a 6-part endeavor cycle, which is the basis of my thinking when we talk about output, input, scenarios, choice, right? So here we got output, recognize outcomes. So the combination of performing actions and recognizing your outcomes, that's the output. And then taking inventory, that's input. Scenarios means that you want to optimize your inventiveness, and you need to question your assumptions, and then you make a choice, which means you want to plan for impact. This is based off of, all these concepts are based off of Create Crucial Insight. And then this particular map gives you the concept of the endeavor elements, and then it goes even deeper into the concept of what is actually motivating people to go ahead and engage in the endeavor elements, and then begin the process of working on the endeavor cycle. There you go. I'm Blaine Gates. This has been Space Between Ideas. We'll see you next time.